most companies will need to have all of their IT operations running at least 8 hours a day, sometimes 24 hours a day, 7 days, 365 days a year, depending on what sort of services you are running. So making sure that you've got the right high availability and redundancy configured into all of your infrastructure is extremely important. If you have a physical server that is going to be running Windows or Linux, whatever its function may be, if it's going to be a database server, if it's going to be a web server, look at commissioning two. If one fails, the other one can pick it up. So these are things like setting up your servers perhaps in tandem, setting them up with load balancing in place so that the load can be spread across two, high availability in place so that if one of those servers does go down, all of the operations can fail over to the other one. So if you are purchasing a server and it has a number of hard drives in it, look at purchasing a server that has sufficient hard drives that you can set up multiple levels of RAID, right? So RAID 5, RAID 1.0, different sorts of RAID configurations that if one disk fails, you don't lose data. So you've got to configure your server based on multiple groups of RAID disks. Look at having hot swappables and cold swappable disks available. So you may have an array of disks. For example, you may have 8 disks which are set up in a RAID, perhaps 4 group disks in RAID 5, so 2 RAID 5s in made up of 4 disks, and you may have an additional 1 or 2 disks in there which are your hot spares. They are disks that are there in the event that a disk fails in one of your RAIDs. The other disks can be allocated to that RAID, rebuild the RAID so that you don't lose any data, or you actually you continue to have your redundancy in place. Additionally to your hot spares, you may want to look at having cold spares available. They could be disks that are sitting in there dormant. They could be disks that are sitting in a cabinet or in your server room, in your cabinet, just sitting outside of your server, so that in the event of a disk failure, even if your hot spares have gone, somebody could physically go to that server and insert new disks and then have those disks rebuild as they need it. It's always important to have some spare disks. Get 2 network cards with multiple ports on each